Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Wander to the Edge. My name is Adam Asher from The Edge of Adventure.
And I'm Zan from Where Our Gals Wander. And Adam, I am fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I don't know if I'm fabulous or not, but if anybody's been following my account, and you've been talking about it as well, there I'm definitely over 40. And apparently for this contest that I was nominated for, you have to be over 40 and fabulous. I've taken care of the over 40 part. I got it. And the fabulous comes down to, I guess, the votes.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So if you
Okay.
haven't been keeping up, I've been looking forward to this all week, just another chance to make fun of Adam. So this is the Best Self magazine in Atlanta, which is a big deal. And Adam is nominated for this award. He's in the top 40 right now. Top 40, over 40, and fabulous. We can get him in the number one spot, you and I, if we go to this website, bestselfatlanta.com. There he is in the middle. You can tell that it's him. He's surrounded by mostly women. He's the one with the beard. So you click on that and you click vote. You're supposed to vote every single day. I don't know if everybody knows that. Every day.
You do. They will let you vote one time per day, and then this is basically more a test of who can mobilize, who can mobilize their following. So, thank you all. And again, this, in all seriousness, it's an honor for me, and this is thanks to Best Self Atlanta magazine and the many friends I have here in my home city of Atlanta, and just their support and having nominated me and all that. And it's all a lot of fun, of course. And if you follow me over at The Edge of Adventure, I mean, you know what's important to me. You know the kind of things that I care about and the things I want to see happen with The Edge of Adventure, my platform, and highlighting and showcasing so many great humanitarian organizations that are working around the world. And I love that. I mean, that's my passion. And so to have an opportunity like this, and maybe to use it to raise awareness of what I'm doing and these other great organizations, that's what I want to use it for. So help me out. That's kind of my way of trying to say it's not really all about me, but you got to vote for me, and please do.
We want to win.
We want to win. That's the
Honestly.
other thing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about me is, if I play, I play to win. So might as well give it a shot here. And with your help, we can do it. bestselfatlanta.com. And then you'll go to /over 40 and fab. And again, I've got the over 40. I'm comfortable with that. The fab, I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, enough about me. We have some great guests today right here on Wander to the Edge,
who are also fabulous. It is Parks and Points. And we're going to talk a little bit about just the beauty of the great outdoors, how you can appreciate it, and how they express it. Also through poetry and through their social media platform. It's a great couple. We're really looking forward to talking with them. It's Derek and Beth Ann. And well, let's do it, Adam.
Parks and Points. They are our guest today, right here on
Wander to the Edge.
Hey.
Hey. So why don't we start off just by having you guys introduce yourselves, and then also just tell us a little bit to set the tone about what is Parks and Points.
I'm Amy Beth Wright.
And I'm Derek Wright.
And we started Parks and Points together in 2016 because
it was the centennial year, and we both have a shared love of state, local, and national parks. And this felt like it would be a great project for the two of us to work on, to express our ideas through writing, to share some travel tips, but then also it became an intriguing platform for other people to express about their love for public lands. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that quickly came out of Parks and Points was these different writing elements where we'd be publishing other people's work along with our own. And a lot of it happens to be nonfiction as well. It's not all just travel guides.
Yeah, we just noticed that travel writing about the parks didn't necessarily have to be about itineraries and plans. It could also be reflective and introspective, and that there was a real kind of exchange that could happen on a travel blog about some of those more like interior landscapes, as well as the places you see and visit and are awed by as an adventurer.
So Derek and Amy Beth Wright, our guests today from Parks and Points. There's something very, very clear. First of all, congratulations on a fantastic platform, because it's very professional.
Thanks.
It's very clean,
Mhm.
it does pull you in. And then, of course, when you are pulled into the blog and you want to know more, your gift and your love for writing comes through. And I guess my question would be, what about the public lands and the parks is special? What makes them worth writing about and going to this much trouble?
Do you want to go first, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that at least how I see it is that it's a special place that sometimes is not really. It's hard to actually encapsulate the beauty, the joy, the history, and just this idea that it is public land. It's something that we all share. And so in that sense, the idea of writing down, everyone can take a picture, and that's fine. They're great to take photos of yourselves when you're in the parks, but like trying to think about those emotions and those times and how you felt while you were in the park, and trying to resonate that and share that with other people. It's also a great way to actually transport you to these parks, so that maybe you, for whatever reason, aren't ever able to visit Yosemite, but through writing and reading about that, you can actually journey to those parks as well. And I think along with images, it's a great platform.
I also think that parks are implicitly shared spaces, and so you are more woven into kind of a commonality, community, a sense of not just being a lone wolf in the world, but you are connected, and you have therefore a sense of, I don't know, maybe conscience about the world that we share, that there's a sense of interest and accountability and protection, that because it's something that is shared, and a common sense of values that's very positive, especially when, you think about environmental issues, but also cultural legacies that the National Park Service preserves, and not losing track of some of the early history. I think the place of exchange and community is really a common value, maybe that we locked into and started to explore more so in creative writing.
I want to talk about that, the sense of community and just the community that you two have built. I've seen a little bit of it through Park Chat on Twitter.
Mhm.
And I mean, you are definitely some of the revered individuals, I think, when it comes to Park Chat and being able to lend your knowledge and your experience and open that up for other people.
Mhm.
But you also make other efforts to reach out to the community and bring them onto your platform and to include them. Do you want to share a little bit about that too?
Sure. I think that because one of the things when we started Parks and Points was I had just finished my MFA in writing and was very, very excited about the personal essay and narrative nonfiction. And we hosted an essay contest, and we had a lot of submissions. And then we realized that poetry might be an interesting avenue to further explore. And I think the first year we had our poetry contest, we received 300 submissions. And we were really floored by that response, because I think it just told us that people really write about these experiences, and that they are transformative for people. And so from the poetry, we built this anthology, having published this poetry series for 5 years. And then from that, we started hosting some virtual events that were also transformative for us, because they were so positive, especially during this past year, the pandemic. They were so uplifting, getting people together, remembering that you read poetry on a page is very different than hearing the writer read their work out loud, and kind of revisiting that memory with them at the same time as they are reading those words and remembering what they wrote. And it was just very powerful, that sense of people coming together to share their work. those are some of the ways in which I feel we've made some off the blog contact with people.
Okay, so what is it about the task of writing a poem that is different than writing another piece, for example? I mean, you pour your heart into both of them, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously, well, one has to rhyme, not necessarily. But what is it? What is the act of writing a poem? What does that mean? Where does that normally come from in the person?
Did you want to? Or I can.
Yeah, I feel like for a lot of the poets that we've published and for some of the poetry we write, it really has to be something that moves you to that point that you want to commit to writing it down and actually going through the creative process of poetry. I mean, it's one thing to write, kind of a travel log about how your life went, how the day went, but it's quite another to start to take those pieces out and then try to make a piece of art out of it as well. That you really have to be inspired by what you saw or the events, or just trying to remember those elements and then sharing that with other people.
I think too, the thing about poetry that it can have interesting breaks in time.
Mhm.
So like one of the poets in our book, Wayfinding, Pamela Hobart Carter, writes about sort of looking under some cedars. And I think her line is, I think I found my childhood under these cedars, and how like you store all these moments from the past and then they kind of emerge at different times because of different responses to the environment. And I think that idea that time is very, very fluid is very exciting in poetry. And also the idea of rhythm and musicality, even if it's not rhyming, there's something kind of lyrical that's happening often.
Derek and Amy, one thing I'm also interested to know is, how did you sort of express this passion for writing before you started Points and Parks? How did you get involved just with writing in general? I know you mentioned, Amy, that that's what your degree is in, but it's different to do it individually and different to bring it together as a couple.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Parks and Points in particular was very much like we got married a couple of years before we started it. And it was like, this is a really nice thing we could do together. And I think the writing is almost like a public diary in a way, like that you're keeping a record of the things you've done and also extracting the value of that for an audience, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's definitely like the writing that we've done individually, like through travel and national and state parks. And then there's also the writing where it's like, it's interesting. The other writing we'd been doing would be like more like social media and like caption writing. I don't know how that.
I think that, yeah, I think I read something like that the personal essay has become the Instagram caption or something like that, that we're all very like open on social media and that there's a kind of like sharing and transparency that happens in that space. And so maybe just the idea of sort of having kind of a chronology to what we were doing, and that it was already something we do a lot because of that.
We both had worked in like narrative forms of art, like
Right.
coming from a theatrical and dance background as well before this. So that idea of narrative is already really strong in a lot of the work that we do. And I think that actually translates into creative writing and poetry and some of the different destination and travel writing.
Yeah.
Making it a story rather than just a bullet point list of things to do.
Yeah.
Derek and Amy Beth, here's a good question for you.
Okay.
Why is writing so hard?
I could write a book about it.
I mean, because it is. I mean, look, and some people
There's-
love to do it and are really good at it. You two are great examples of that. And other people, I don't know, struggle a little bit more. I guess sort of the world we live in with the pressure and the stuff to do. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you kind of have to carve out the space to write because you're creating something. I mean, it's not a task. It's not like, oh, I need to do this. You're sitting down and you're creating something out of nothing.
I think it's exactly that, personally, that, the time, it takes time and it takes time that you think you're wasting sometimes. Like if you can't get something on the page, you're like, oh, I was at this cafe for 3 hours and, I wrote a sentence or, but that sentence could be like the bridge to the rest of the whole thing. So if you didn't do all of that thinking and all of that sort of ruminating on what you wanted to do, like your brain is working, even if you don't have words on the page, I think. And, but it takes real time. And I think there's a lot of, competition for our attention and our focus, and the time to kind of spend doing that is uncomfortable. And like for me, I get the most writing done in the summer because I don't have quite as much, like I teach during the academic year. And so I don't feel so bad if like a half a day is getting through a couple of things really well, as opposed to pages and pages, because I feel like the time is of a higher value because I've really had the time to think about it.
Yeah. Oh, writing is also, it's an activity. It's a creative activity that you do alone.
Yeah.
Not always alone, but it's one of those things that's, it's hard. I mean, other work that we do with like in the collaborative arts, you have a group of people that are together putting something together. As a writer, you're actually putting it together yourself generally, and then sharing it with everyone. And so that sense, I think that's what makes it hard for me, at least, is like, I just like, you have no idea where this is going. Is this good? Is this bad? I have no idea, but here it is.
I know Zan has a question. I can tell by the look on her face, but I wanted to ask a question about this picture. Did that snowman ever give you guys the cold shoulder?
Oh yeah.
We really plodded through some snow to get to that guy.
Yeah.
we did not build it, but we felt that we had to get as close as we could.
Yeah.
Okay, Zan, you're up next.
Are you sure you got nothing left in the tank as far as the snowman goes?
I'm sure there's more there.
And kind of along that note, one thing that struck me as you were talking about the writing experience, and also you didn't say it explicitly, but sort of in the tone of which you talked about the parks, there's a sense of being mindful and being in the moment of where you're at to truly appreciate everything that you're experiencing. And so I guess one question that I had as a follow-up is, mindfulness is a big part of being able to focus and to get that attention. Is there something that you do? Do you have almost like a ritual to kind of set that for yourself to get in that mindset?
It's difficult. I think for me, a lot of times writing will come back to images, and the images that I've taken necessarily from the places I've been. In that sense, it helps me remember a bit more about the location, how I was feeling, the environment, how maybe other people that we encountered and interacted with. So for me to actually kind of flip through and like look back at images that I had taken from the place I'm interested about writing about really helps solidify that in my mind and helps me move forward.
I think that we also have started talking about our long walks in the forest, like forest bathing, and that sometimes we go to a new place. It takes like a day of just getting warmed up, almost like any kind of exercise or activity that you have a period of adjustment, and then you like hit your stride. And I think the more that we spend time in one concentrated natural space, I don't know, I'd never thought of the term mindfulness before you said it, but I think that probably is happening. But that there's just an observation and recording that's happening. The more miles we cover.
Yeah.
And where did the concept come from, this idea, which I think is a great one, to blend the arts and the outdoors?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it comes for us from again, having other performance-based backgrounds, and like there's the traveling where people will go on a hike and adventure. You'll climb to the top of the mountain, you'll hike to the beach, but like trying to think about like what is the journey in that inside of you, and then also in the art of how to either write about it, photograph it, or even create actual physical art with painting and sketching. it's this idea that there is a lot to do with the arts and the parks and nature have a lot more intersection than I think a lot of people will acknowledge or go with. There's a lot there. There's a lot of like open ground for that.
Were you distracted by this picture? What was
A bit, yeah. Got our funny photos in there. Yeah.
I think too, like we both came from like I think sometimes there's this idea of a linear career path. Like, you know, when you're getting older, growing up, like I'm gonna go for this thing, and then you end up pivoting. And I think like for me, like I was a modern dancer, like Derek was saying, and Derek was a you know, is a lighting designer and involved in theater still, and it feels like, oh, am I giving up this thing if I'm also doing this thing? But you can find ways for them to harmonize and work together and like be pluralistic and do many things at once. And I think part of like inviting people to share their creative work on our site and us trying to do that too as writers is a way to keep both of those things you know, going.
It's true. And then the national parks, a lot of the sites actually do celebrate the arts. And that's another thing, is that within the National Park Service, there's, you know, dozens of parks that are about the performing, the written, the spoken arts. And it's a really important part that
yeah, like Weir Farm in Connecticut is the home of some Hudson Valley school painters.
Or there it is. There's one right there. Yeah, I mean, that's the Edgar Allan Poe house. It's basically, it's an art space in a sense. It's where, you know, creating took place
tortured,
there.
anguished writing.
But it's there, and it's something to think about when you're in that like a place like that. Like, what is that? How is the space existing now? How did it exist then? What's the creativity within this? And then, it's interesting how the National Park Service or other park departments will actually start to interpret and protect that space, these art spaces, in a sense.
Also, I thought of one more thing, which is just like complementary with what we said about parks being kind of a place for community and exchange. I think everybody is implicitly a writer and an artist in some way. Like there's everyone has like something to share, and so those two things work together. You know, that it's just we don't have enough spaces for it. I think for like communal kinds of exchange, I think that the more we have, the more like we would see how much people want to express and have to express about their experiences if there's a venue and a forum for it.
Do you think that you hear from a lot of folks like, oh, I just don't have that creative side? But I truly believe that everyone has some balance in them and some way to express themselves that can come out creatively.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Do we hear people say they don't? I don't know.
Occasionally, yeah, you'll run into people that'll say, it's great what you've done. I could never write a poem. I could never do that. I'm like, I'm sure you can. It's a great way to express yourself. And I think a lot of people get hung up on the idea of it being great or amazing. And part of what I think that it's or fabulous about writing is that it's whatever it expresses for yourself and how you can use this thing, this poem, this essay,
photo,
to actually remember that moment and to transmit that emotion to someone else. It doesn't have to be the world's best poem. It just needs to come from you, from your heart, in a sense, and
the more people, you know, that do share their creative impulses, the more like the less hierarchical I think art is, you know, that we're less like competitive and critical about it, and we sort of experience the value of like our individual humanity. And so it's nice to have those spaces for that to happen. Yeah.
To go back to my thought about being mindful and kind of going into a quiet place, I'm gonna pick on Adam because that's just what I do. So Adam, I say, has two modes. He has fire, where he is just in this driving space, getting stuff done, working across all his different platforms, which is what makes him, again, so fabulous. But then also I always tell him, you know, he's got this like poetry side where he just has to stop. Well, Adam, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Do you want to?
Well, you know, you were really the one through our friendship. You were really you were the one who pointed out sort of that dichotomy between fire and poetry, and yet I think you're right. I know, I don't know if everybody's like this, but and that's one reason why I ask you about the struggle to write and create, because in my case, I am both of those things. I'm a task-oriented person that, likes to get things done. I like to see progress. I like to cross things off a list. I do.
Mhm.
And yet at the same time, I have this other side of me, which is the artist that must create and communicate and conceive of an idea and convey it. And if I
Mhm.
don't do that, then I start to die inside a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And so I have to create, and everyone is different, as you pointed out. I mean, for some people, their art or their artwork is different, but what I try to do, I do try to bring a level of um, art to it and make it something that is meaningful and beautiful. And then at the same time, there's the other side of me that is um, productive and driven to produce. And those two things are at odds with each other in a way, and yet they need each other. I think that's kind of what I've learned. And Zan was really somebody who helped me realize that I have to stop and give up on the productivity mindset. I've got to put it aside and, you know what, pause that and make time to go into poetry mode. And for me, that's even code. It doesn't necessarily mean writing poetry. It means create, think, write, dream, and
Reflect.
set aside
Yeah.
the push. So, but it takes discipline, because if you don't do that, you don't do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
I
true.
think that's kind of the cure for burnout a lot of times, is just to stop and to listen to your instincts, or your, not to, almost like your soul, to understand what it needs to fill you back up. We
Mhm.
spend so much time pouring ourselves out in so many other buckets. How do we replenish? How do we refill? And even going to your platform and your site and taking a moment to absorb everything that you've shared, like, fulfills me.
Mhm.
It gives me that space.
Sometimes I think that's what travel is too, is that I don't know, just observing and having some inspiration and feeling like a sense of I'm not, driving toward producing things or working on something is very enervating and recharging.
Hmm. Yeah.
I agree 100%. So travel, taking time to create and breathe, and like one of the things you said earlier, I think it was Amy Beth that was talking about. You feel like you're wasting time,
Oh, uh-huh.
and you think, oh, I didn't make enough progress. I didn't do, and it may feel that way, but it's a process, and you're in the writing. You have to go through that process, and you have to make time for it. So indeed, well, you guys are very good at it. You guys are very smart and very dedicated. You have done great things with Parks and Points, and you can find that at parksandpoints.com. I need to hear about the other projects, because I get a sense you guys have several things going, and we need to talk about them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you want to talk about the book?
Yeah, so right now we actually, because of all the shared work, around a year ago, about like at the very beginning, like about a little over a year ago, we started looking at our poetry series that runs every month in April as part of National Poetry Month. And we get, hundreds of submissions, and we can only run so many of them. But we started looking back at the years of those poems and like this huge body of work. And we thought, well, it's great that it lives here, but wouldn't it be interesting if it lived elsewhere as a physical form? It's great to have poems on the internet, but actually reading poems and having a book in physical form would be interesting. And so that's what we did. We approached it as an anthology with the different poets that have collaborated and written poems in the poetry series. And we recently published with Finishing Line Press. It's coming out very soon.
It's called Wayfinding.
Wayfinding.
And it also has some short essays about the parks and different ecosystems, and then a lot of photography, a lot of original photography. So it's kind of organized like a trail,
Mhm.
that, like, as you're reading it, you should feel like you're kind of moving through these different landscapes and ecosystems, starting with like woods and wilderness and ending in a very different place, like a desert canyon. And then go on, sorry, our other projects.
So that's one of ours. And it's amazing because it also ties back into, like we were saying, everyone was talking about tonight, the idea of creating and like how to actually actualize that. And it's really connected us to the beautiful part is it's actually connected us back to many of the poets through different live events and readings, so that it shares the work all over again and puts it out there in a different way.
Yeah,
it's been very, very community. In that sense, that's where the writing becomes community driven, is the sharing of it. And
I think that doing one book like that gave us ideas for other ways we could collaborate in writing together. And so we're starting to think along those lines, other writing projects that we might want to take on, the two of us. It's very fun to like start a draft and have someone else read it and see something, and then it kind of like really is collaborative. So we just moved to New England, which is where the snowman picture came from. Because we moved in January, and Derek was like, "Well, I'm going hiking," and he went out like every day to our local state parks, and it was definitely interesting to like to hike during the winter, and see like the land in a different way. But we've been like trying to immerse in New England, as our point of inspiration.
Yeah, so those are some of the projects, and we're excited to continue, with publishing with Parks and Points.
Yeah.
Different content, coming out now. We're getting towards the end of the summer now. But yeah, and then also the idea of like, the parks, and actually trying to celebrate parks that aren't the largest parks. It's like one of the things he said, like no park too small. That there's a lot of amazing places, and then to try to start sharing that and writing about that. The parks that aren't the big grand parks that everyone thinks of, that there are so many great experiences that you can have, and artistic inspiration, and feeling moved in a wide variety of parks. And I think that a lot of people discovered that over the last 18 months or so. But trying to actually keep that going forward, that looking for that inspiration, even locally, and feeling that there's something there. And it's definitely something we felt too on the trails, is that sometimes it's amazing what just turning around the corner and seeing some.
Yeah, I think part of the idea of Parks and Points was you shouldn't have to spend like a lot of money on travel as well. Like that you should be able to, that there are so many incredible parks that have like a story behind them and an incredible natural, sort of identity, that that these should be accessible to as many people as possible. And that often means like thinking, like, I'm not, like Derek had said, like, when you're planning your travel, you don't have to like go to the Maldives to have like an incredible experience. Like you can have an incredible experience closer to home as well.
Do you also want to share a little bit? We talked about the park side, about the points side as well.
So we do. So there's our site. So we do a little bit of the points travel, and using like your credit cards and other points to do that. It's a twofold thing of the word points, because it's also like like location points, and then also points for
points of interest,
and then using your miles and other points in a sense to actually travel to domestic and other locations, where a lot of times going to Yellowstone can be quite an expensive adventure for most of the families, and people are either spending days or a lot of money flying there. And so by looking at like different travels and things like that about how to actually use those strategies to find.
And to think about the network of public lands in one place. Like there's not just a massive national park, there's a national forest, a state park, county parks that all have like similar regional identity, like local, natural features. And so you can web together a lot of places in one place, by visiting one place.
Yeah.
The points are Derek's passion.
So wayfinding, okay? And this is the collection of poetry, and I want to give you guys a chance to plug it here. Where do they need to go to buy this or to acquire a copy?
I think the best thing to do is to go to parksandpoints.com/wayfinding, because that links to everything, to our publisher's page. But Finishing Line Press is the publisher.
Yeah. And so, we hope to have it more into distribution too. in the coming weeks and months.
It'll be
in
available
physical bookstores.
at Skylight Books in LA.
Mhm.
Actually, that might be near you.
I was just going to say,
And we
I'll
did
have to go and check it out. Yeah.
And the other thing we did was we were part of their podcast series Skylit, which was really fun, and we brought with a few of the poets who read their work, and then we had like a conversation about writing and memory and remembering your experiences in the outdoors and trying to put them into poems. And so they'll be carrying the book, which is great. And then you can order it online as well. And we have a few other bookstores that are interested. They wanted to see the physical copy, so
that's coming soon.
Coming soon.
But yeah, and also to then, if anyone is out there, is a poet and does write, to definitely submit to the contest. These submissions, it's actually not, it's almost.
Oh wait, no, it's not.
No, it's not. It's August. It's August. But we are, it's going to come up in early New Year. So around late February, early March, the submissions portal will open up again. And it's great. And amazing how many people will actually submit poems. It's
yeah.
And what do they have to do to submit?
Just the instructions are on there. It's just literally emailing us their 3 poems
and a bio.
And a bio.
Yeah.
And there's no submission fee. We definitely keep that as a free to enter. That there's no barrier to people wanting to enter their poems for finance.
You just need 3 points in a poem.
Yeah.
And then you have a speech. All right.
Exactly.
Listen, really great to get to know you guys, Derek and Amy Beth. Wright, interesting. I know it's not spelled the same, but that's a great name for you two. I like that. And you're very good at it. Very interesting people, and you're doing so many wonderful things. And I certainly encourage people to check out your website at parksandpoints.com, and you can follow the blog. You can stay up to date on their latest adventure. And yes, you can find out how to get your copy of Wayfinding, because it's going to be something you want as a member of the travel tribe.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having us. And yeah, people can also find us on on all the social media networks.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for having us tonight. We really loved being here with you your wonderful questions.
I love chatting with you guys. I definitely, when the book comes out, we'd love to have you back on, even just for a few minutes to share an update and update us when the poetry contest is coming up too. And I know I'm going to see you guys on Twitter and Park Chat, and I know that we'll be following right along on your adventures as well. And then I also have to say, speaking of fabulous adventures, just a reminder for everybody to go out and vote for Adam for the top 40, over 40 and fabulous on bestselfatlanta.com.
Thank you all for your friendship, your support, and it's a lot of great things are happening. Most of the work and the progress all happens behind the scenes, right? People don't get to, people don't see all of that. And then to have something like this happen, which kind of did catch me off guard. I did not know that was in the works, and I certainly appreciate it. And to be considered and included in that group is pretty awesome. And again, I just want to say thanks to all the great Atlanta people who made that happen. So we'll see. Anyway, yes, it's not too late. I still need 1 vote per day from everybody that's listening and watching, and everybody you know. And then I think if we can get everybody you know to vote, then I have a shot. Otherwise, I'm doomed. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. This is Wander to the Edge, and it's just our pleasure to get to talk with and meet great people like Derek and Amy Beth Wright from parksandpoints.com.
And just want to say, we've got another fantastic episode coming up next Saturday. You know where to find us here on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and now we're on TikTok. And make sure that you join us again next week, right here on Wander to the Edge.